Officer Daniel Brooks thought it was just another cold night on patrol. The streets were buried in snow, the town silent under a storm, when his flashlight caught a shape in a frozen alley. At first, it looked like nothing but trash. But as he stepped closer, his heart nearly stopped. A stray German shepherd was curled tightly around a newborn baby, shielding her tiny body from the deadly cold. And right beside them, half buried in the snow, was a crumpled note from a desperate young mother. What Daniel did next would not only change his life, but would also prove that family can be found in the most unexpected places, even on the coldest night of the year. Subscribe to Shepherd Legacy for more powerful true stories of courage and devotion. Tell us in the comments, what city are you watching from today? The snowstorm showed no mercy that night. Wind howled through the empty streets, pushing sheets of snow across the pavement until the world looked like it was made of nothing but white shadows. Officer Daniel Brooks drove slowly through the darkened neighborhood, his headlights cutting through the storm. Calls had been quiet, but bitter cold like this always made him uneasy. He knew too well how quickly the weather could turn deadly dot as he turned down a narrow side street. His eyes caught movement in the beam of his patrol car's lights. At first it looked like a pile of garbage bags half buried against a wall. But then something shifted. Daniel frowned, pulled over, and grabbed his flashlight. The cold slapped him in the face as he stepped out, his boots crunching deep into the snow. He raised the beam, and his breath caught in his throat. A dog, thin, ragged, its coat dusted with snow, was curled tightly in the corner of the alley. Its tan and black fur stood out against the white snow, and it wasn't alone. Wrapped within its body, tucked beneath its chest for warmth, was a newborn baby. For a moment Daniel couldn't move. His mind refused to process what his eyes were seeing. The shepherd's eyes glowed faintly in the flashlight's beam, but instead of fear or aggression, there was something else there, desperation. The dog held still, its body curved protectively around the child, as though it understood that if it moved, the little one's warmth might vanish. Daniel dropped to his knees, the flashlight trembling in his hand. "Oh my God," he whispered. The baby stirred faintly, a soft cry escaping its lips before being muffled by the dog's thick fur. The sound snapped him back into motion. He reached for his radio, his voice urgent. "Dispatch, this is Brooks. I need an ambulance immediately. I've got an infant out here in the snow." "Repeat, a newborn." The shepherd's ears flicked, its gaze fixed on him. A low whine came from its throat, not a threat but a plea. Daniel extended a gloved hand slowly, his heart pounding. "Easy, boy. I'm here to help." For a tense moment, the dog didn't move. Then, with a shudder, it shifted just enough for Daniel to glimpse the child's tiny face. The baby's cheeks were red from the cold, lips trembling. But she was alive. That's when Daniel noticed something else, half buried in the snow beside them. A crumpled piece of paper. He brushed the snow away with shaking fingers and pulled it free. A handwritten note. His eyes raced over the smudged words, and his heart dropped. The message was short, desperate, and heartbreaking. A mother who had left her child behind, because she believed it was the only way the baby might survive. Daniel closed his eyes, snow stinging his face. He looked back at the shepherd, who pressed closer to the baby, refusing to leave her side. It wasn't just luck that kept this child alive. It was the dog. A stray with nothing in the world, except now, the will to save a life. Snow whipped harder through the alley as Daniel carefully pulled his coat open. He knew the baby couldn't last much longer in this cold, and every second mattered. Slowly, he reached forward, speaking softly to the shepherd. "It's okay. Let me take her. You did good. You saved her." The German shepherd's ears flattened, its body trembling as it let out a low, protective whine. For a moment, Daniel thought the dog might not let him touch the child at all. Then the shepherd shifted slightly, keeping its body close but allowing Daniel to scoop the baby into his arms. The newborn gave a weak cry. her tiny fists clenching in the freezing air. Daniel pressed her against his chest, wrapping his coat around her as tightly as he could. Relief washed through him, but it was fragile, almost fleeting, because when he tried to step back toward his car, the shepherd jumped to its feet and blocked his way. The dog barked once, sharp and commanding, snow scattering from its muzzle. Daniel froze. "You're not leaving her, are you?" he murmured. The shepherd's stance made the answer clear. Headlights appeared at the end of the alley as the ambulance skidded to a stop. 2 paramedics rushed out, carrying blankets and gear. "Where is she?" one called. Daniel stepped forward, carefully handing the baby over. The paramedics wrapped her in heated blankets, checking her vitals with urgent precision. But the shepherd wasn't finished. As the paramedics worked, the dog circled them, whining and pacing, never more than an arm's length away. When one of them tried to load the baby onto a stretcher, the shepherd leapt forward, teeth bared, not in attack, but in pure desperation. It barked furiously, refusing to let the child be taken without it. "Whoa, whoa!" one paramedic yelped, pulling back. "Control that dog." Daniel raised a hand quickly, stepping between them. "Easy, he's protecting her." "He won't hurt her." He crouched, meeting the shepherd's eyes. The animal's chest heaved, breath puffing white in the air, but its gaze was fixed on him, searching. Daniel reached out and placed a steady hand on its neck. "Listen, you did your part. You kept her alive. Now let us help." The shepherd whined again, torn between trust and fear, but as Daniel guided him closer, the dog pressed against his side. Together they walked with the paramedics, the shepherd never taking his eyes off the stretcher as they lifted the baby inside the ambulance. Snow continued to fall, covering the alley in silence once more. But inside that ambulance, the tiny infant finally let out a louder cry, a sound of life fighting back. The paramedics exchanged glances, their shoulders easing. "She's going to make it," one said softly. Daniel exhaled a shaky breath, looking down at the shepherd who now leaned against his leg, exhausted but unwilling to rest. "She's alive because of you," Daniel whispered. And in that moment, he knew this was no ordinary stray. This was a guardian who had just rewritten the ending of a story that could have been. Tragedy. The ambulance tore through the snowy streets, sirens cutting through the storm, while Daniel followed close behind in his patrol car. Every few seconds he glanced at the shepherd in the passenger seat beside him. The dog sat stiffly, eyes fixed on the flashing lights ahead, ears twitching with every faint cry that slipped through the storm. It was as if he understood exactly where they were going and who he was going for. When they reached the hospital, the baby was rushed inside, wrapped in heated blankets and connected to tubes and monitors. Daniel stood by helplessly, watching the doctors and nurses work, his heart pounding with every alarm that beeped. But the little girl's color was returning. Her chest rose and fell with stronger breaths. Against all odds, she was holding on. And just outside the glass doors of the A, the shepherd pressed against the frame, fogging the glass with his breath as he refused to leave his post. He barked once, loud and sharp, startling a nurse. Daniel walked over, placing a hand on the door. "He saved her," he explained. "He's not going anywhere until he knows she's okay." It took hours, but finally, a doctor emerged with tired eyes and a relieved smile. "She's stable," he said. "Cold exposure, but no permanent damage. She make it." The news hit Daniel like a wave of warmth in the middle of winter. He exhaled deeply, then stepped outside where the shepherd still waited. Kneeling down, he met the dog's tired, anxious eyes. "She's going to live," he whispered. The shepherd whined softly, lowering his head against Daniel's chest as though he understood every word. Later, inside a quiet waiting room, Daniel finally pulled the crumpled note from his pocket. The paper was smudged from snow, the writing uneven and rushed. It was short, but it carried the weight of heartbreak. "I can't give her the life she deserves." Please, whoever finds her, love her. Save her. She's all I had. Daniel's throat tightened. He folded the note carefully, slipping it back into his pocket as he looked at the shepherd resting on the floor. The dog had nothing, no collar, no home, no family, but when it mattered most, he had given everything. In the days that followed, the baby was placed under hospital care while social services searched for answers. Reporters came, drawn to the incredible story of a stray dog who shielded an abandoned newborn through a deadly snowstorm. They called him a hero, an angel, a miracle. But for Daniel, he was simply what he had always been, a protector. And when the time came for the shepherd to be placed in a shelter, Daniel didn't hesitate. He filled out the papers himself, bringing the dog home. "You're not going back to the streets," he said firmly. "Not after what you did." As weeks turned into months, the story spread, but for Daniel, the most important thing was watching that baby girl grow stronger each day, knowing she owed her life to a stray who refused to give up. Because sometimes heroes aren't the ones wearing uniforms. Sometimes they walk on four paws, stand guard in the cold, and remind the world that loyalty can save a life.